The Zhiyun Molus X100 is a 100 watts LED COB light, which is just ridiculously small. The light head is like the size of a paperback, and a small one at that, and yet it outputs a serious amount of light. Oh, and it runs on its own battery. So does it deliver? So let's take a look. Zhiyun have introduced a range of new lights, which claim to deliver useful lighting performance in absurdly small packages. The X100 is a 100 watts LED COB light. This is nothing unusual except for its form factor. It's ridiculously thin and flat, really unlike any other kind of cinema light I've ever seen. In fact, the entire light head is just about the size of an on-camera LED panel light. So with such an amazingly small build, does it deliver the goods? Well, I've had a good play with mine. I bought it with my own cash, just out of curiosity, and I've checked out the light output and also the power usage and the noise it makes. So let me share what I've learned. So let's start by taking a look at what you actually get with the X100 and some of the practical day-to-day issues like power and noise. The build quality of the X100 is basically very good. It seems very well put together and it's really nicely made for what it is. Of course, it is plastic and it's lightweight, so I would not call this a robust light. It's not like I would toss it in the back of a truck. But for gentle indoor use, I'd say this is fine. Also, the manual is clear that it's not waterproof. There's no weather sealing, so don't use it in the rain. If you're looking to buy the X100, there are 3 kits to choose from. The basic kit has the light, the mini reflector and the mains power brick. It really is the basic. There's also a power adapter organizer bag, which is just a little mesh bag, but you can use it to hang the power brick, and a carrying strap for the light, which I haven't used. The combo kit has all of that, plus the grip battery, the Bowens mount adapter and a nice carry case. The Pro kit is the same again, plus a mini softbox. This is 18 centimeters or 7 inches. This is the kit I bought. The cable from the power brick to the light is 1.5 meters, or about 5 feet. So if the light is up on a stand, you're going to want to hang the power brick. The cable to the wall is 3 meters or 10 feet, which is plenty. If you get the combo or the Pro kit, the case that comes with it is really nice. It's solidly made and it feels great, and it has custom compartments for all the bits. It accommodates the light, the battery, the mains brick and power cord, the standard reflector and the carrying strap, for what that's worth. There are small pockets in the lid for accessories. I keep the battery port cover in there. The Bowens adapter, softbox and so on would have to be carried separately. This is a general disadvantage of these kinds of well-fitted cases. If you change up your gear, like buying a second battery or whatever, then it has to be carried separately. Still, this is a lovely and really useful case. One odd niggle about it is that the reflector stows below the light, but not attached to the light, as the space for it is offset about 1 centimeter or so. This seems a little odd. I'd like to keep the reflector attached, if only for a little extra protection for the light ship, though to be honest I don't think there's actually a problem there. Anyhow, I cut a little chunk out of the side of the foam and a finger slot on the other side, and the light goes in with the reflector attached now. The electronics are all in a bulge on one side, so that the actual light area is as thin as it could be. It's just a light ship, a heatsink and a fan. The design philosophy seems to be light ship, airflow, and that's it, which I think is a pretty good philosophy if you can pull it off, and it looks to me like they did. The light ship has a glass cover over it, which is nice as there's no supplied cap. I like to keep the mini reflector on there for a little added protection. Holding it feels like holding an SLR camera, just a very thin and light one. I'd be careful with that though, because it does get very hot. It's really lightweight, just 385 grams for the light itself, 449 with the mini reflector, and adding the battery brings the total up to 887 grams. Underneath there are 2 1/4-20 holes, one in the centre for using the light by itself and one offset for when you're using the battery. If you use the Bowens adapter, it gives you a baby pin spigot mount. The control knobs for colour, temperature and brightness are on the left, and the power buttons on the bottom left. Clicking the control knobs jumps the settings up in steps. Holding in the brightness button gets you into the power menu, which basically lets you set live mode or studio mode, where the light comes on when it gets power. Holding in the color temperature button gets you into music mode, which I haven't played with. Underneath, on the bottom right, you have the AC power adapter port and also the USB port, which is also used for firmware upgrades. These are a bit odd as you can't use them unless the light is on a stand, but you would probably be on a stand anyway. The battery clips onto the right-hand side through its proprietary port, making an even more natural feeling hand grip. All four corners have holes for a strap, but I don't know why you would use a strap with a light like this. With the power and heat of it, I would generally want it on a stand. The light itself comes plastered with bright yellow warning stickers telling you to be careful because it gets really hot and it can burn you or set fire to things. In my opinion, you should pay heed to these warnings because it would be very easy to underestimate this light. It's almost exactly the same size as my old 176 LED panel light, but it's in a completely different class. For comparison, here's the old 176 LED panel. This is an oldie but a goldie. I'm sure you've seen a million lights like this. And here's the Bowling P1. This is a much slimmer light with a built-in battery, and of course it's full colour. This is it at 5600 Kelvin. And here's the X100. As you can see, it totally blows the others out of the water, despite being the same size. There's an accessory mount on the front of the light. This is a proprietary mini mount, which is no wonder since the whole light is about the size of a conventional Bowens mount. They call this the ZY mount. The accessories I have click-ons firmly and sit securely, so it seems really good. The release lever is a little catch on the side of the accessory itself. There's a Bowens mount adapter, which I have. This gives you a standard spigot mount so that this can go on a light stand, and then your Bowens modifier goes on the front. The light itself clicks onto the back. They do suggest not using a softbox larger than 60 centimeters because I guess the light's output pattern wouldn't cover anything larger. The X100 is pretty amazingly quiet. I guess since it's basically all airflow, it doesn't really struggle to keep cool. In any case, I really have trouble hearing it unless I put it right to my ear. The most recent firmware update actually increased the fan speed. I guess there might have been some concern about overheating, but it's still super quiet. Here it is on my desk and it's been running at full power for the last hour. My microphone is on my chest on a chest strap, and the light is about the same distance from my mic as my mouth is, so let's have a listen. And again, really, I can't hear anything at all. Unless I put it right to my ear, maybe you can hear that. Obviously, you would never have your light this close to your talent in real life, so I think noise is not a factor. The X100 has Bluetooth and there's an app to control the light remotely. The app is called ZY Vega. I have it running on Android and there seems to be an iOS version as well. The app lets you control your brightness and your color temperature remotely, and it lets you control groups of lights and then you can identify individual lights within the group. I haven't really tried all these features since I only have the one light, but the app seems pretty solid and well put together. One of the headline features of the X100 is that it's really versatile about how you can power it. There are 3 ways in all. On the bottom there's a barrel connector port for the supplied AC power brick. And there's also a USB-C port which can accept USB power delivery. They recommend using a 100-watt power delivery power supply if you're going to use this. And of course you'll need a 100-watt power delivery cable as well. However, I found that using it with less powerful breaks, the light actually responds intelligently and just runs at whatever power it can run at. On the side is the connector for the X100's own battery. This is a proprietary port and it lets you power the light up to 100%. This battery brick is actually an intriguing feature of the X100, so let's take a closer look at it. The X100's battery charges over USB. It has a USB-C port and it uses power delivery, and it looks like it can charge at up to 30 watts in. One limitation of the X100 is that the light itself can't charge the battery, so to charge the battery you're going to need something that can supply USB power. But the USB-C port on the battery is marked in-out. So can the battery brick be used as a power bank to power other devices? Well, yes it can. The manual says it can provide 30 watts with power delivery, so it should be able to power a good range of devices. I tried this with my Canon R5C camera. This camera needs power delivery and it uses a chunk of power, and it's pretty finicky about what it will run off. So I plugged it into the X100's battery pack and it worked great, no problem at all. I ran the camera recording continuous 4K video for 5 hours and 14 minutes before the battery was out and the camera switched to its internal battery. Given that the R5C normally gets just over an hour from its internal battery, this was a big improvement. So I could totally see using the X100's battery pack as a backup power supply in the field. The only issue is that the form factor is a little awkward for this. There's no 1/4-20, and whereas a regular flat USB brick will go in a phone clamp, with the X100 battery you'd have to improvise a bit. Still, this could certainly work. So to actually powering the X100. On the AC adapter, the light obviously goes up to 100% and produces its maximum brightness. Running on its own battery, plugged into the battery port, the light also goes to 100%, and I measured the same brightness, so no penalty for using the battery. If you plug in an external USB power brick that doesn't have power delivery, you get nothing, as expected. If you plug in a USB power delivery power bank with 30 watts of power, the light comes on and runs up to 30%. This is also what happens if you plug in the X100's own battery using a USB cable. It acts as a 30 watt power brick. If you plug it in a USB power delivery 60 watt power bank, the light comes on and runs up to 60%. I don't have a 100 watt power brick to test with, but I would guess it would work as expected. In all these cases, the display tells you that you're using USB power delivery, and it tells you the power rating of the power supply you're using. This is actually really nifty, as this is actually the only piece of technology I own which can tell me what a given USB power supply is actually capable of. If you turn the brightness knob up above what the power supply can handle, it flashes the power rating on the display to let you know what's wrong. The X100's runtime on its own battery at full power is claimed to be 30 minutes. I measured 31 minutes, so fine. At 50% power, I measured 53 minutes. But 50% power is quite a lot more than 50% brightness. Overall, the X100 seems to be really smart and versatile about how it takes power. If you have a power delivery power supply of some kind, you should be able to get something out of the light. And even at 60% power, the light is pretty bright. So of course the main thing about a light is light output. So I ran some basic tests of the X100 and a few comparison sources, shining at a wall with a light chip 1 meter from the wall. I measured the light output at various points using a basic lux meter, so sorry but no colour accuracy tests here. For comparison, I'm using the amout 100D. This is a really nice light in a more traditional kind of form factor, and I think it provides a useful reference point. One thing about this light is that the amout hyperreflector creates a very bright hotspot of light in the centre. This is not what I want, so I've replaced it with a cheap basic reflector which creates a much more even spread of light. Since I'm concerned with the shape of the light as well as the overall output, I measured the light intensity at the centre of the pattern and at 50, 75 and 100 centimeters from the centre. I've also attached waveform displays from my video editor as well. So to start with, for comparison, here's the amout 100D with the replacement reflector. It produces a nice flat spread of light, as you can see, with 6600 lux in the centre and 4500 50 centimeters out. The X100 with its standard reflector is much more spotty, with over 17,000 lux in the centre, but falling off rapidly to 2800 at the 50 centimeter mark. I tried both lights without reflectors to see what the spread of light was like. The amout produces 4270 lux in the centre, falling to 1102 at 1 meter. The X100 with no reflector produces a pretty similar pattern with 3404 lux in the centre, falling to 846 at 1 meter, so maybe a little less light overall. With the big reflector on the bounds adapter, the X100 produces a relatively narrow beam with 22,000 lux in the centre, falling off to 2275 half a metre out, which is effectively the edge in this case. I did try pulling the X100 back a bit, and it seems to help get a flatter light pattern. Using its standard mini reflector at 1.4 meters from the wall, it gets 8640 lux in the center and 2055 half a meter out. Still not as flat as the Amaran, but it helps. There are a couple of options for modifying the X100's light with softboxes. The softbox that comes with the Pro kit is really ridiculously cute, but also very well made and easy to set up. But it's still pretty tiny, and since the softness of a light depends on its physical size, this isn't going to do a lot. But it's better than nothing, so I gave it a try. So with the softbox on, you get a pretty diffused pattern of light, but still hotter in the center at 2219 lux, falling to 956 half a meter out. That's a pretty big reduction in overall light. There's also the 60 centimeter softbox, which is a Bowens mount, and so it goes on the Bowens adapter. This is a collapsing box. You set it up by pulling on the side rods until they latch. It takes a bit of effort, but it's relatively easy. It comes with 2 diffuser sheets, and you can use it with either or both. With this softbox with just the front diffuser, you again get a pretty wide spread, and it seems to let a lot more light through, with 5290 lux in the center, falling to 1712 half a meter out. Seen from the front, you can see that it's bright, but with a hot spot in the center. With 2 diffusers, the softbox is slightly flatter in its illumination, but soaks up a lot more light, with 3000 lux in the center and 1000 at the half meter mark. Seen from the front, the light is definitely flatter, so this might be better for lighting talent. Here are some comparisons of how the X100 works at different power levels. At 100% power, we again have over 17,000 lux in the center. At 75%, this drops to 14,640. At 50%, it's down to 11,750. At 25%, you get 7,630. At 10%, you get 5,060. And the brightness is controllable down to 1%, but this isn't actually all that dim. The reading is 3000 lux in the center. The light used to go down to 1000 lux, but it gave you some weird color jumps down at the low levels. They seem to have fixed this by basically increasing the brightness of the light across the board. So you don't really get a terribly dim light at 1%. But on the plus side, at least they're fixing problems and issuing firmware updates. There have been a lot of lights released recently in the 60 to 120 watt power range, and a lot of them are very similar. It seems if you're looking for light in this bracket, your biggest problem is just choosing one. What Zhiyun have tried to do with the X100 and the other lights they've released, like the G60, is basically create a new niche for super compact, lightweight, almost toy lights, but with serious light output. It's pretty clear that they're aiming at the home studio YouTube creators, where you don't expect your lights to deal with rough handling or weather, but you do want something that performs in terms of light. And I'd say they've pretty well nailed it. The tiny size of these lights seems to offer a whole range of new possibilities. You could rig one of these in a place where a more conventional light would be pretty impractical. Other than that, the X100 seems to be pretty much a replacement for a more conventional 100 watt light, but with the X100 in its case, with a full kit, you could get 4 of these in the box that the Amaran 100D comes in. For me, the one problem with this light is the really bright hotspot in the center of the pattern. I'd love to see if there was a different reflector that could solve that, though I don't know if that's actually possible with a smaller light. Still, overall, the X100 seems like a real performer in an amazingly compact package. In any case, I hope this video has helped you to understand what the X100 is about, and thanks for watching.